else has a question?
I'd like to know, when J.P. Morgan goes bankrupt, just as the other banks were going on the verge of bankruptcy in 2008, we had a whole bunch of Republicans vote for TARP, including Tom Coburn, all these conservative Republicans, to bail out the banks. How are you guys going to stand when J.P. Morgan goes under? Are you going to vote to bail them out?
Well, personally, I'm tired of bailouts. No one's going to bail my business out if I fail. Had we let the car industry go bankrupt, they would have reorganized. Chrysler did it once before. I can't answer for Tom Coburn or why he did that. But I think the time of bailouts should be over. It's time for us to get our fiscal house in order, and I'm not going to be voting for bailouts.
I can tell you, Lloyd, from my conversation with Mark Wayne, and he's not going to vote for bailouts and everybody's a subsidy. Those are questions I've asked him myself, because that's who I am also. So I don't see him doing that based on what he told me. That's all we can do is hold him accountable. That's all we can do now is hold him accountable.
May I have a follow-up?
Well, I was just saying, as I recall, Inhofe did not, right?
No, not Inhofe did not. Inhofe did.
Let's just let Inhofe.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
But since we had so many of the so-called conservative Republicans who stand for so-called free market principles, what would be your best guess, the reason that they voted for the TARP bailout and for a lot of them voted for many other bailouts, but mainly for the TARP? Either one.
Let me go. Well, whatever answer I give is personal opinion. That one, well, that's what I'm. But that's mine, not Mark Wayne. Okay. So, I say that, you heard me say this on the campaign trail. The Bible says that man can be ensnared, and that's what's happened. We got, I'm not going to try to guess a number or percentage, but let's just say it this way. We got some good people up there, but they've been ensnared. For whatever reason, Kobe, I don't know, you'd have to ask them. But one thing, in my opinion, I believe, they got ensnared. Now, we also know that when all that was coming through and they were talking about it, well, there was a lot of demagoguery going on. See, it's always the fear factor, folks. It's always a fear factor. Who do they pick on first? Seniors. They're going to hit you seniors because when you're on your fixed income, that's one of the greatest rocks you can move. Easy to move. You're not going to get your check. I don't think you're a senior, but you're not going to get your check. And I guarantee you, he goes nuts. Okay? So the thing is, and I also said this on the campaign trail, when that stuff comes about, and I've said it before, I'm not convinced America is ready to go through what's going to take to get it back. It's going to take sacrifice. If we're going to continue to fall for that stuff until we tell George or we tell Mark Wayne, I don't care what they tell you, do not put it through. And even though they may have some information, they may say, George or Mark Wayne may say, okay, but let me just tell you, here's what they're saying. And when we say, you know what, enough's enough. Stand on principle. And until we start standing on principle, Roy, nothing can change.
I've heard Senator Coburn explain this. I'm not saying it's my opinion as well, but obviously what Dwayne was talking about, they have some information that we as normal citizens may not be privy to. He said that America was on the verge that your credit cards no longer would work had they not been bailed out. The financial situation was such a degree that that's how precarious it was. I'm not going to defend his vote on it, but that was his reasoning. That's what I've heard him say in public arena.
Let me springboard off of that. And here's what I say to that. See, when all that came up, what was it that, and I've always just called him Obama. That's as much as I do for him. So when the next day Obama came out and said, no, wait a minute, now if we don't pass this through, I can't guarantee Social Security. Remember you saying that? Okay, let me say something. Hogwash. Number one, you're not in charge of the appropriations. And when our Congress gets enough guts to stand up and say no more, how can he be doing the unconstitutional things he's doing now? And here's another thing. Take a business. Take any business. If George comes up tomorrow and he needs you know, whatever it is. They say he needs 10 grand a month to operate his business, and all of a sudden, it drops down to 6. What do you think George is going to do? George is going to cut costs like a madman. Did you remember hearing any congressman come up and say, you know what, maybe this is the time we need to cut some agencies. Maybe this is the time we need to cut some federal employees. Folks, I'm telling you, it's sacrifice. When I ran for House, George, I had a guy ask me one time, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I say it's the same problems in the state that we haven't fed at D.C., it's just a different level. And I said, you know what, I'll be willing to cut some agencies. He said, you're telling me, Dwayne, that you'd be willing to cut 5, 6, 7,000 jobs? You would put 6,000 state people out of a job? And I said, absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because my responsibilities would be as a state house, 3 million plus, not just 6,000. If you do the right thing, those 6,000 are going to have jobs. And to me, it's the same thing. I'm figured out a whole lot different horse, a whole lot tougher. But I'm just saying, how come they never talk about cutting something? They never talk about cutting something. And that's what just crawls up my tree.
Maybe you should just recommend Constitution 101 to everybody.
I love it.
I mean, seriously.
I have a question along the same line. I received an email. I go on for a cold email. They recently, I'm talking about Obama, recently purchased 25 airplanes or jets for Afghanistan. $530 million purchased from Russia. My question is, when can we stop him from just blatant, just look at all the jobs we lost, that's what I'm trying to say. They could have found companies here in the United States to make those airplanes, but they were purchased from Russia. My question is, how can we stop this blatant spending money from the president?
What Romney in November? Were they fighter planes or were they?
No, for Afghanistan. Well, that's what the.
Is there something wrong? Does everybody else see anything wrong with that, buying fighter planes from Russia?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute, we buy uniforms from China for our guys. What's the difference? Well,
Biggest Olympic competitor.
you know, we can all throw out an answer, but you know what? The bottom line is to have the people, and when they see that kind of food, and they may be the only one. You know, George and Mark Wayne, they may be the only one that'll step up and say, you know, we're not doing that. But until someone does it and tries to call on the other ones to stand on the very principles they say they believe in, they've forgotten about we the people. They forgot about that decades ago. It hasn't been we the people for a long time. They continue to feed us and just lead us along the way to the people. But no, it's not happening, folks. It is not happening. Revolution. Revolution's done.
Two more questions. Do you know if, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to speak for Dwayne because he's kind of shooting from the hip here, but will either candidate support an amendment to define marriage?
As a man, between a man and a woman?
Correct.
You bet.
Good. Thanks for clarifying.
Define marriage, that correlates into my follow-up question. Where in Article 1, Section 8 does it give the federal government the power to do that? And then also, how would you enforce it?
Well, you know, obviously you have to add it as an amendment. To do that. So I think what we need to do is, I saw the article, I don't know if anyone else saw the article, let's have Chick-fil-A Day every Wednesday in support of marriage.
No, yeah, you're right, it's not there, and it's not in Section 8. Now, I can't, well, to answer your initial question, sure, I think you'd say that, but in your second part, I can't answer for him on that, okay? But what I would say to that, I know what you're asking there, and I believe I understand where you're coming from, and I would say, you know, you might want to make that a state issue. If the people don't want to make an amendment to the Constitution, it's got to go to states.
Well, I even go further than that. Your marriage license is issued for your county.
Well, I
It
understand.
should really be a county issue, and at that point, you know, it's the judges that you vote in, whether or not you're going to allow it in your county. So the only way you can enforce that at a federal level is to remove the judges if the citizens voted in, and I disagree with that.
George, would you enumerate the reasons you feel like you'll be the strongest Republican candidate to keep this, not to keep the district, to move this district into the Republican column?
Sure. His question was, do I feel like I'd be the strongest candidate to be able to win against the Democrat? And I certainly think I am. And there's several reasons. First of all, I'm the only one that's won in a heavily Democrat district. No one else that was in the race had won in a majority Democrat district. I mean, 72%. I've built coalitions up and down the district. I've got the small business experience. I've worked relationships up and down the district. I've got legislative experience of being able to go to work right away. And I think that's important. I've been fully vetted. When I first ran for State House, the two things that they said against me, the Democrats, they said I homeschooled my kids and I went to church in Tulsa. Right after the primary, the Democrat Party came out, and the two things that they said against me is I supported the Ryan budget and I accepted the endorsement of Mike Huckabee, who supports the fair tax. I mean, if that's all the Democrats have against me, I feel I'm best positioned to be able to win against that the lawyer, Rob Wallace, which will most likely be him in November.
Well, sure. I think that in my experience, and it's not huge, but it was covered in one county, and then just a conversation with others in some of these eastern counties. I think what we sometimes don't realize is, at least over there, and I speak of Cherokee County, that you got a lot of Democrats, but a lot of those Democrats are Republicans. They signed up so they can vote. Now, what is that percentage? Oh, I don't have a clue. Couldn't tell you. But all I know is that I met a lot of people that were Republicans. They told me just when they signed up to this, but I'd say that, yeah, I think what they're saying is true. I also just trying to insert additional information to say, is that a one-for-all deal? Well, probably not, but I think it's a good start.
Could you address your voting record on the recent budget vote, because you voted no and then you voted yes?
Sure.
So were you just wanting to get out of there and get on the campaign trail, or what was going on?
Her question was my voting on the House budget. Fortunately, in Oklahoma, we have a balanced budget amendment. We're constituted by the Constitution to produce a balanced budget, and we have to do it within the time frame of the last Friday of May. Unfortunately, the budget process is not what it ought to be, in my opinion. We received the budget the last week of session. In the last 3 days, looking at the budget, there were too much spending levels. We have been trying to get a tax cut for citizens. We actually had $32 million that was set aside that was going to help pay for a tax cut to taxpayers of Oklahoma. We were unable to get that accomplished. I voted no against the budget, and it failed on the House floor. And I did some searching of my own and heard, wow, since that passed and since all the other bond issues passed, well, I heard all these other talks about, hey, let's take that $32 million that we had set aside for taxes and let's spend it here. Let's send some more money to education. And then I heard talk of another couple $100 million of spending. Had we gone to a special session, it would have cost taxpayers more money, and it would have been higher spending levels than what the budget was that we had to vote on. So in that situation, I knew the budget here had levels that I wasn't real happy about, but I know the other budget that we would have had to have, because we were Constitution mandated, would have higher spending levels. So in the choice of, am I going to spend more of Oklahoma's taxpayers' money? No. So I took the budget that was agreed to and changed my vote to yes.